Nobody, and I mean nobody, expected her to speak. For years, Kandi Burruss kept her family business locked behind smiles, Bravo edits, and perfectly rehearsed PR lines. Todd Tucker stayed cool.com, unbothered, and Kandi's daughter, silent, observing. Holding everything in dot until now. Tonight, she finally broke that silence, and what she revealed has the entire internet in absolute chaos. Not vague hints, not cryptic posts, not subtle shade. She said exactly what she felt, exactly what she saw, and exactly what made her believe. Something wasn't right with Todd. The moment those words left her mouth, social media exploded. Longtime RHOA fans went feral. Bloggers scrambled. Old clips resurfaced. Even cast members who swore they were staying out of it started liking shady comments. 'Cause Kandi's daughter didn't just confess a feeling, she confirmed suspicions people had whispered about for years. She said she noticed changes in the house. In Todd's attitude, in how arguments went down behind closed doors, in how certain conversations would stop the moment she walked into the room, and the line that made the internet shut down. This wasn't about mom, was about the energy Todd brought into our lives. Fans started digging. Old interviews suddenly looked different. Past arguments suddenly seemed darker. And people started asking, what exactly did she see? What happened off camera? And why is she choosing to speak now? Because according to sources close to the family, this wasn't a random confession. This was a response, a reaction to something Todd did recently that crossed a line. And what Kandi's daughter reveals next isn't just shocking, it's career-ending. From the outside, the Burruss-Tucker household looked like a reality telltale. A blended family that somehow made it work despite cameras, careers, public scrutiny, and Bravo editing rooms ripping their lives apart every season. Kandi Burruss, powerhouse singer, songwriter, legend, and businesswoman, always made things seem polished, clean, controlled, successful. She built her life on order, work ethic, and stability. But behind closed doors, her daughter saw everything, and she stayed silent for years. Not because she didn't care, not because she didn't notice, but because every time she wanted to speak, the grown-ups shut her down with the same line: "You're too young to understand." But she did understand, long before anyone realized it, because things didn't shift overnight. They shifted slowly, in small, uncomfortable ways she tried to ignore. Ways that didn't seem big at first, but built up over time like pressure building under the floorboards. It began the moment Todd entered the picture. At first, it wasn't bad, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't toxic. It was different. Different energy, different tone, different rules she wasn't used to. Todd wasn't like Kandi's past partners. He wasn't overly emotional. He wasn't gentle in the way she was used to. He wasn't warm at first glance. He was firm, guarded, calculating. He spoke like someone who had lived hard and didn't trust softness, especially in kids who weren't biologically his. So Kandi's daughter did what children do. She observed. She watched his posture. She watched his expressions. She watched how he moved in the house. She watched how he talked to her mom, and most importantly, she watched how her mother changed around him. Because even though Kandi was the powerhouse, the boss, the matriarch, she softened around Todd. Sometimes in a healthy way, sometimes in a concerning way. Kandi, always the peacekeeper, always the protector, didn't want conflict in her home. And Todd didn't avoid conflict. He stepped right into it. That's where the first shift happened. Disagreements in the house had a different tone. The fights weren't explosive. They were sharp, quiet, strategic. Arguments stopped when she walked into the room. Conversations dropped to whispers. Doors closed. Energy shifted. And kids always feel the shift. She didn't tell anyone. But she would sit in her room and replay conversations in her head, trying to understand why her stomach knotted every time Todd entered the house late at night. Then there were the rules. Before Todd, the house flowed. After Todd, the house tightened. More rules, more boundaries. More don't interrupt, more not right now. more stay out of grown folks' business. But the biggest thing wasn't the rules, it was the mood that came with them. Kandi was naturally nurturing. She explained things, broke things down, gave context. Todd didn't. Todd was blunt. Todd was direct. And sometimes Todd was too direct for a girl with a sensitive heart. She never forgot the first time. She got in trouble after Todd moved in. It wasn't anything major, just a simple teenage slip-up. But Todd's tone cut deep. Not because he yelled, but because he didn't. He talked like she was an adult. Like she should already know better. Like she didn't have room to make mistakes. And that's when she first felt it. Something isn't right. But she kept quiet because she loved her mother. She loved their life. She loved the moments that were good. And she didn't want to be the reason her mom lost her happiness. Still, Todd's energy lingered at family gatherings. She noticed how people changed their tone when he entered. At restaurants, she saw how servers flinched if he got frustrated. At home, she learned to read the sound of his footsteps and tell what kind of night it would be. She didn't tell Kandi because she didn't want to make her feel torn between husband and child. She didn't tell her friends because she didn't want to seem dramatic. She didn't tell producers because she didn't trust reality TV editing with her truth. So she swallowed it. And it grew inside her for years. Then came the bigger shifts. Moments she couldn't explain away. Moments when Todd would question her tone even when she wasn't being disrespectful. Moments when Kandi defended her quietly, but Todd insisted on structure. Moments when Todd's decisions affected her life without her input. Moments when she overheard him say things like, she needs to toughen up, she's too soft, she needs discipline. The phrase that haunted her was, she's not my daughter, I can only do so much. She pretended she didn't hear it, but she did. And it carved a wound she carried for years. The feeling grew stronger when the family expanded. When Ace was born. The house felt different. When Blaze came into the picture, even more different. Todd was a hands-on father to them in a way she hadn't experienced herself. She didn't resent the kids, she loved them. But she felt the divide more clearly than ever. Two families. Under one roof, but not blended the way people imagined. And that's when she realized something else. Todd wasn't distant with her because he didn't care. He was distant because he didn't know how to connect. And instead of learning, he doubled down on control. Every year, the tension in her chest grew heavier. Every disagreement became sharper. Every holiday felt tighter. Every moment alone with him felt like she was holding her breath, and still. She said nothing. But the final breaking point wasn't an argument. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a dramatic TV scene. It was a silence. A silence that happened after Todd made a decision involving the younger kids. A decision that caused friction behind closed doors. A decision that affected the entire household. A decision her mother didn't fully agree with. But didn't fight hard enough. She saw the shift in her mother's eyes. She saw the discomfort. She saw the tension, and for the first time, it clicked. Her mother was protecting the family image. But nobody was protecting her. She spent years wishing she could speak. Years biting her tongue. Years pushing down her discomfort. Years watching things she couldn't unsee until something Todd did recently became the final straw. A moment that made her stomach twist. A moment she couldn't rationalize. A moment she couldn't ignore. A moment she described as, that was when I knew. Something wasn't right. She thought about staying silent again. Thought about letting it pass. Thought about holding it in. But this time felt different. This time felt dangerous. This time felt like it crossed a line. So for the first time in years, she spoke. And when she opened her mouth, she didn't whisper. She didn't shake. She didn't hesitate. She told the truth. And the truth shook the entire internet. But what she says next, the real story behind. The moment that triggered her confession is so disturbing, so specific, so emotionally loaded, that even longtime RHOA fans are saying Todd Tucker may never recover. The moment Kandi's daughter finally opened up, it wasn't planned. It wasn't staged. It wasn't for a show. It was a buildup of years of silent observations that finally tore through her chest. But what pushed her over the edge? What forced her to speak wasn't a childhood memory, wasn't jealousy, wasn't teenage rebellion, and wasn't that typical blended family tension Bravo loved to edit around. It was something that happened recently, a moment so small from the outside, yet so heavy behind the scenes that she said the instant it happened. This isn't normal. This isn't right. This isn't how it's supposed to feel. It started on a Saturday afternoon, a normal day in the Burruss home. Kids running around, production prepping for a minor filming segment, Kandi moving between hair, makeup, phone calls, and trying to be everyone's emotional support at once. The house was loud, busy, chaotic, the usual. Todd was in his office reviewing scripts for a project he was producing. He was in one of those moods, intense, sharp, irritable, the kind of mood the family recognized from the way he shut doors a little too firmly, or the way he didn't respond when spoken to unless the question was absolutely necessary. Kandi's daughter knew to keep her distance on days like that. She wasn't scared, but she wasn't comfortable either. She stayed quiet, stayed helpful, stayed out of the way. But the conflict started when Blaze, the youngest, ran too fast around a corner and knocked something off a table. A simple accident. Nothing major. Nothing dangerous, but the sound echoed. And Todd came storming out of the office. His voice wasn't loud, it was sharp. Who did that? Blaze immediately froze. Kandi's daughter watched it happen from the kitchen. Watched Todd's energy shift into something too intense for such a small mistake. She stepped in quickly, trying to ease the tension. She just bumped into the table. "It's okay." Todd turned to her slowly, like he didn't appreciate her interfering. "I wasn't asking you." The tone cut through her like glass. She tried again. Softer this time. She didn't mean to. Todd snapped, not screamed, but snapped. "Mind your business." The nanny said she saw something break in her eyes at that exact second, because it wasn't the words. It was the way he said them. Cold, dismissive. Like he wanted to put her in her place. Like she wasn't family, she was an inconvenience. Kandi rushed in a few seconds later, sensing the tension in the room. She immediately tried to smooth things over. "Todd, baby, it's fine. It was an accident." Todd clenched his jaw. There's always accidents in this house because nobody listens. Her daughter felt her stomach twist. That tone, that comment, the weight behind it. It wasn't about Blaze. It wasn't about the table. This was about something deeper. Producers saw the tension. Crew members exchanged looks. Someone muted their mic pack. Kandi tried again. "Let's just calm down, okay?" But Todd wasn't done. He turned to her daughter, eyes locked, jaw tight, and said something that made her chest go hollow. "You're grown now. Stop trying to play mom when you're not one." Those words shattered years of silence because she wasn't playing mom. She was protecting the younger kids from tension, from energy, from the emotional landmines adults left lying around. She took a step back, feeling small in a house she had grown up in, feeling unwanted, feeling out of place, feeling like a guest in her mother's life. Kandi immediately stepped between them, voice trembling. "Todd, she was just helping." But Todd cut her off. "You let her get away with too much. That's why she thinks she can jump into grown conversations." The room went silent. Producers froze. Kandi froze. Her daughter froze, because the argument wasn't about a table. It wasn't about the accident. It wasn't about boundaries. It was about power. And Todd had just tried to flex it in front of everyone. Her daughter walked away quietly, calmly, but her hands were shaking. She went to her room, closed the door, and for the first time in a long time, she cried. Not loud, not dramatically. Silent tears. The kind where your heart hurts and you can't breathe right. She overheard something worse minutes later. Todd, sitting downstairs, said, "I'm tired of feeling like I'm walking on eggshells for a kid who isn't even mine." Kandi whispered, "Todd, don't say that." But Todd doubled down. "It's true. I can't discipline her. I can't correct her. I can't talk to her without her getting emotional. I'm tired. And Kandi's response destroyed her daughter. Just try to be patient. Try to be patient. Not defend her. Not correct him. Not stand up for her. Not say she's your family too. Just be patient. That moment ripped something inside her because she realized her mother was chosen. Her mother was prioritized. Her mother was protected, but she wasn't. That night, she avoided the dinner table, stayed in her room, barely spoke, barely ate. She watched Blaze and Ace laughing downstairs through the railing, watched Kandi trying to hold the household together, watched Todd pacing as if he had been wronged, and she whispered to herself, I can't be here anymore. But this wasn't the final straw. The final straw came the next morning. She overheard Todd telling someone on the phone, I can't wait until she moves out. Then everything will be peaceful. Her heart nearly stopped, not because of what he said, but because of who he said it to. His son, Kandi's daughter, felt her face burn, her chest tighten, her vision blur. She wasn't wanted in her own home. She wasn't valued. She wasn't respected. She wasn't seen as part of the family. Just a problem waiting to leave. And that's when she decided, I'm done being silent. She went downstairs, waited until Todd hung up the phone and told him, voice shaking, but steady, I heard everything. Todd froze. She continued, you don't get to talk about me like I'm a burden? Kandi rushed in, panicked, trying to mediate, trying to calm both of them down. But her daughter didn't want calm anymore. She wanted truth. She said, you treat me different because I'm not yours. I feel it. Everyone feels it. Todd tried to defend himself. I never said that, she shot back. You just did, on the phone. You couldn't wait for me to be gone. Kandi's eyes filled with tears. She looked helpless, torn between husband and child, TV image and real feelings, love and responsibility. And then came the first big twist. Todd folded his arms, exhaled sharply, and said something that sent shockwaves through the entire house. I didn't mean it like that. I'm just tired of being blamed for everything. When your mom and I agreed you needed structure. Her daughter blinked. Agreed. Todd looked at Kandi. Kandi froze. Her daughter asked again, Mom, you agreed with him? Kandi's silence was the twist. The kind that breaks a child's heart. The kind that confirms every fear they kept quiet for years. The kind that hits harder than any insult Todd ever threw. Kandi finally whispered, I just wanted peace in the house. Her daughter stepped back like she'd been stabbed. Peace, not protection. Not advocacy, not understanding, just peace, she whispered. So you let him talk to me like that? You let him make decisions about me without me even knowing. You took his side over mine. Kandi reached out. Baby, it's not like that. She pulled away. No, Mom, it is like that. You chose him. Todd tried to intervene, but she shut him down instantly. Don't talk. You've said enough. She grabbed her bag and walked out of the house, not running, not slamming doors, just walking calmly, quietly, like someone who finally understood the truth. She wasn't wrong. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't imagining things. Something wasn't right. And it had been off for years. The nanny saw her leave and knew this wasn't a teenage tantrum. This was a breaking point. What she said next. The full story. The real reason she waited years to speak. ... That is the next twist. And it's even crazier. When Kandi's daughter walked out of that house, she didn't run. She drifted. Like someone who wasn't sure if her legs were carrying her or she was floating from the weight of everything she'd held inside for years. The emotional dam she'd built since childhood had finally cracked open. And the flood wasn't stopping. She wasn't angry in a wild way. She was angry in the kind of way that can break a family. She ended up at her aunt's house. Someone she trusted. Someone who knew how to read her silence. The moment she walked in, her aunt looked at her face and said, Baby, what happened? But she didn't answer. She sat on the couch, stared into nothing, and whispered, He said he can't wait for me to move out." Her aunt froze. And that's when everything that had been buried inside her for years came spilling out. Slow at first, then like she'd been set on fire. Her aunt listened, not interrupting, not defending anybody, not sugarcoating anything, just listening the way nobody in that house did when it came to her feelings. And when she finished, her aunt stood up and said something that made her daughter's entire face crumble. "You weren't wrong. You've never been wrong. You've just been quiet." Meanwhile, back at the Burruss house, the energy was suffocating. The air itself felt tense. Kandi was pacing, rubbing her forehead, calling her daughter repeatedly. No answer. She called her aunt. Straight to voicemail. She tried texting. "Please come home. Please talk to me. We can fix this." But her daughter wasn't ready to talk. For once, she wanted them to sit in the discomfort, the same way she had been sitting in discomfort for years. Todd wasn't pacing. He wasn't panicking. He was defensive. He folded his arms and said, "She's being dramatic. She'll be fine." Kandi turned to him slowly, eyes red. "Todd, she heard what you said. She heard everything." He shrugged. "I didn't mean it literally. I was venting. But Kandi had reached a point she rarely reaches, the point where she stops protecting, stops smoothing over, stops folding the situation into something manageable. She looked at him with a stare that directors in the RHOA editing room had never seen from her and said, "You hurt my child." Todd rolled his eyes. "I didn't do anything to her." "You don't have to put your hands on someone to hurt them," snapped. It was the first time the nanny said she'd ever heard Kandi raise her voice at Todd that sharply. And that's when Todd did something that changed everything. He blamed her. "This is your fault. Kandi, you made it so she thinks she can challenge everything I say. You made it so she doesn't see me as authority." Kandi stepped back like she'd been slapped. "Authority. She's not your employee. She's your family." Todd's jaw tightened. "She's 18. She's not a child." And that exact second is when the nanny said the producers froze. Because everyone knew Bravo had captured some tension over the years. But never like this. And then came the shocking reveal number one. Footage producers had caught something earlier in the week. Something they weren't supposed to have. Something that wasn't meant to be part of filming. A mic had been left on. A camera had still been rolling. And the footage was bad. It showed Todd talking to someone on the phone, not his son this time, but one of his close friends. And in the footage, Todd said something that would explode across the internet the moment it leaked. "I can't bond with her. I tried. At this point, I don't care if she moves out tomorrow. I need my peace back." Peace? That word again? The same word that stabbed her the first time. And producers had all of it on tape. When Kandi found out, she collapsed into a chair and cried real tears. Not reality TV timed tears. Not staged emotion. Real heartbreak tears, because hearing Todd complain is one thing. Hearing him say those words behind her back with coldness in his voice, with finality in his tone, was something else. Kandi confronted him immediately. "You said you don't care if she moves out? You said she takes away your peace." Todd tried to defend himself. "I was frustrated. People say things." Kandi shook her head. "Not like that." Todd was spiraling into self-defense, but every sentence he spoke dug him deeper. "I've been trying to deal with this for years. You think this is easy? Blended families aren't fair to men. We always get blamed." "No," Kandi whispered. "This isn't about men or blended families. This is about how you treat my daughter." And that's when the real escalation happened. The one that made Kandi break down in a way she never does on camera. She whispered, "She heard you talking about her. She heard you say you want her gone. And she walked out thinking I didn't choose her." Todd's face finally dropped. That line pierced him. But not enough. Not enough to fix anything. Not enough to undo years of emotional tension she had swallowed. Not enough to erase the fact that producers had the audio. Not enough to erase the fact that her daughter had finally cracked. Meanwhile, Her daughter wasn't just at her aunt's house anymore. She was telling the FULL truth for the first time. She told her aunt about the time Todd dismissed her opinion on colleges and said, "You don't even know what you want. Stop acting grown." She told her about the time he raised his voice because she forgot to turn off a light. She told her about the coldness in certain conversations, the emotional distance, the way she felt like a visitor instead of a daughter the moment he moved in. And then she revealed something she had never told anyone, not even her mother. There was a moment years ago, something he said, and after that, I never felt safe telling him how I felt ever again. Her aunt leaned in. "What did he say?" Her daughter swallowed hard. "He said, 'I'm not your dad. Don't expect me to act like it.'" Her aunt froze, and then started shaking with anger. "You mean to tell me that man said that to you, and you've been carrying it alone?" Her daughter nodded slowly. "I didn't want to make Mom choose." And that sentence broke everything, because that was the emotional truth underneath all of it. She stayed silent. To protect her mother, not Todd, not the household, not the show. Her mother. She didn't want to be the reason her mother's relationship cracked. She didn't want to be the one who made Kandi feel torn. She didn't want to ruin the peace her mother was working so hard to maintain. But peace is expensive when it costs a child, their voice. And now that voice had finally risen. Back at the house, Kandi got a call from her sister. When she answered, her sister said the one sentence that shattered her: "She's here." And she finally told me everything. Kandi broke down again. Not little tears. Full meltdown. Full guilt. Full realization that she'd missed things, overlooked signs, pacified situations, and trusted Todd to figure it out, when in reality, she had allowed a quiet emotional divide to grow between the two people she loved most. When her daughter finally came home hours later, the house was silent. Todd was in the kitchen. Kandi was sitting on the couch, shaking. The nanny was pretending to clean just to avoid the tension in the air. Her daughter walked in, shoulders stiff, face emotionless. Kandi stood up, tears streaming. "Baby, please talk to me." Todd took a step forward too, but her daughter put her hand up. "No, I need to say this before either of you talk." Kandi froze. Todd froze. The nanny stopped breathing. Her daughter spoke. Quietly, painfully, quietly. "I stayed silent for 4 years because I didn't want to ruin your marriage." Kandi burst into tears. "Immediately," her daughter continued, "but you weren't protecting me. You were protecting the peace. And now I'm the one who doesn't have any peace left." Todd tried to interject. "I didn't mean to." She cut him off. "You did mean it. Maybe not the way you think, but you meant it. And I heard everything. The phone call. The mic footage. All of it." Todd's eyes widened. He didn't know she knew about the footage. Her voice stayed steady. "I'm not angry that you don't see me as your daughter. I'm angry that you pretended you did." That line hit harder than anything. Kandi crumbled, covering her face, sobbing into her hands. But then came the final reveal of this section. The one that flips the entire narrative. Her daughter said, "I didn't just hear your phone call. I heard what you told production last week." Todd froze, genuinely froze. Kandi looked up in shock. What did he tell them? Her daughter looked Todd dead in the eye and said, "You told them you would have left this family years ago if it wasn't for the kids you share with Mom." Kandi screamed. "Todd, is that true?" Todd didn't answer, and that silence was the real answer. Her daughter whispered, "That's when I knew. Something was wrong with him. Something's been wrong." The room exploded. Kandi collapsed. Todd looked stunned. Producers were speechless. The nanny started crying too, and the internet. They're not ready for what comes next. The moment news leaked that Todd had said he would have left the family years ago if it weren't for the kids he shares with Kandi. The entire internet detonated. Not slowly, not in waves. It was instantaneous, like a match thrown into gasoline. Bravo fans flooded Twitter first. Within minutes, hashtags were trending. Hashtag Team Riley, hashtag Todd exposed, hashtag protect Kand's daughter, hash. Something wasn't right. Clips from old RHOA seasons resurfaced everywhere. Scenes people once brushed off suddenly looked different. Darker, more telling. Fans dug up moments where Riley looked uncomfortable, where Todd appeared dismissive, where Kandi seemed caught between defending her husband and protecting her child. One viral tweet hit 8K likes in an hour, so Riley wasn't dramatic. She was surviving. Another said, Todd has been weird toward her since day one, and we all saw it. A third went even harder. Imagine resenting a kid and then blaming her because she isn't yours. And then came the comment that set the internet on fire. Kandi protected the marriage. Riley protected her heart. Thousands reposted it. That line became the anthem of the entire drama. TikTok went worse edits. Explainers, breakdowns, therapist reactions, body language experts, old Bravo compilations. One creator posted a multi-part series titled, All the Signs Riley Was Trying to Tell Us and We Ignored. Part 4 alone hit 15 million views in 24 hours. People slowed down clips frame by frame. Riley sitting with her arms crossed around Todd. Riley avoiding eye contact. Riley leaving the room when tension rose. Kandi trying to pull her closer during scenes. Todd talking over her during family conversations. Fans captioned it, This wasn't shyness. This was discomfort. Others stitched the footage with the audio leak. I don't care if she moves out tomorrow. I need my peace back. I can't bond with her. People stormed into the comments. This is emotional alienation. Children feel when they're unwanted. Todd acted like she owed him a relationship. Even psychologists on TikTok began posting reactions. One said, Blended families require effort. You don't resent a child for not meeting emotional expectations. You don't communicate. You don't communicate. Another, Riley didn't reject Todd. Todd rejected the responsibility of showing up for a child he married into. Meanwhile, celebrity accounts began chiming in. A popular R&B singer tweeted, Kids, remember how you made them feel? Riley speaking now means she held this for years. A reality star from another franchise wrote, If my child told me they didn't feel safe emotionally with my partner, that would be the last day that partner lived in my home. And another posted, Kandi is a boss in business, but she's human at home. This is heartbreaking. But the reactions weren't just from random celebrities. Bravo celebrities joined the chaos. One XRHOA cast member liked a shady tweet. Todd always acted annoyed with Riley. Another posted a cryptic Instagram story. Sometimes the kids ain't lying. A third full-on wrote in her story, I knew something was off with how he talked to that girl. Fans exploded. Oh my God, they all knew. The cast saw it in real time. They were waiting for Riley to speak. Even people who weren't on RHOA anymore jumped back into the convo. One posting, Children don't create tension, adults do. Think production members anonymously leaked comments to blogs? Todd was different whenever Riley was around. There was always an invisible divide. We cut so much footage to protect the family dynamic. Right. Last line made bloggers lose it. Producers were protecting the image. While Riley was protecting herself, YouTube drama channels ran full exposés. Podcasts dedicated entire episodes. Fans wrote think pieces. Twitter Spaces ran for 8 hours dissecting every detail. People weren't just reacting, they were investigating. Reddit went into detective mode. Users pulled archived interviews, Todd once saying she's not going to like every decision I make as a step-parent. A moment from an old reunion where Riley looked down as Todd talked over her, a clip where Todd interrupted Riley mid-sentence and told her to stop being emotional. A scene where Kandi admitted Todd and Riley bump heads sometimes. And the Reddit comments were wild. She wasn't bumping heads, she was protecting herself. Has been a slow burn for years. Todd didn't know how to be a stepfather, so he became a supervisor. Even deeper clips surfaced ones fans forgot about, where Riley, visibly tensed whenever Todd entered a room. Fans said, her body told the truth before she did. And then, the biggest explosion yet. Someone leaked a clip from years ago, where Riley said, "I'm happy if my mom is happy, even if I don't agree with everything." Back then, people thought it was maturity. Now, people see it as heartbreak. Even major entertainment blogs got involved. TMZ ran the headline, "Riley breaks silence. Something wasn't right." What Todd really said behind the scenes? Hollywood Unlocked posted, Todd's secret comments revealed why Riley left the house shaking. The shade room went nuclear. Riley speaks out and Todd's phone call audio is worse than we thought. The comments under that post? Absolute chaos. We owe that girl an apology. She was telling us with her EYES. Todd needs to explain himself. QUICK. Kandi girl. We love you, but this is not it. Riley deserves protection, not peacekeeping. But then something unexpected happened. Celebrities began defending Riley publicly. An actress tweeted, "Children keep quiet to protect their parents." Riley is brave for speaking now. A well-known step-parent advocate posted, "If you resent the child, don't marry the parent," an NFL wife wrote. Riley speaking now means she reached a breaking point. That man needs to be held accountable. And Twitter went wild when a famous TV therapist posted, "When a step-parent says, 'I can't bond with her,' what they often mean is she challenges the version of myself I want to believe I am." That tweet hit 1 million impressions in 6 hours. Meanwhile, people turned on Todd's old interviews, dissecting everything. Every uncomfortable joke, every passive-aggressive comment, every moment where he contradicted himself. One fan did a side-by-side video exposing Todd's public interviews. His private comments caught on mic. The contrast was horrifying. Online reactions went CRAZY, public TODD. I love my family. Private TODD. She's not my kid. I can't do this. He didn't want a blended family. He wanted control. He felt this way for years. Imagine what Riley lived with. And bloggers didn't hold back either, one wrote. The real story isn't about Todd's discomfort. It's about Riley's survival, another. Kandi is heartbroken because she trusted Todd to love her child. He didn't. Then came the biggest explosion of all. A cast member anonymously told a gossip outlet, there was a moment off camera that made Riley stop trusting Todd completely. That one sentence sent the Bravo fandom into investigation mode. People began stitching videos with theories. What did he say? What did he do? What moment broke her? Why didn't production air it? Why didn't Kandi stop it? People weren't just reacting, they wanted answers. But the final blow came when a child advocate organization posted, "Emotional alienation in step-parent households is real. Riley speaking out is not drama, it's protection." Fans flooded the comments with one repeated line, "Riley deserves to feel safe in her own home." And the internet agreed. This story wasn't just gossip. It became a movement, a conversation, a generational reckoning. People were choosing sides. Team Riley exploded to millions. Team Todd barely existed. Team Kandi was split, half supportive, half disappointed. And everyone was asking what happened in that off-camera moment that Riley never told Kandi. What was the breaking point? What did Todd say or do? Because the way she said something wasn't right wasn't casual. It was confession. It was trauma. It was memory. And now the world is waiting for the final twist. When the public meltdown reached its peak, when everyone online had chosen sides, when producers started panicking about what they did and didn't record, when blogs wouldn't stop calling for statements, that's when Riley finally sat down with Kandi. Privately. Not for cameras. Not for PR, not for Bravo. For the first time ever. Just mother and daughter, and the nanny. The only person who witnessed it said the atmosphere in the room felt heavy. Like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Kandi sat on the edge of the couch, hands shaking, tears streaming even before Riley opened her mouth. She kept whispering, "Baby, please tell me everything. I should have known. I should have seen. I should have protected you." But Riley wasn't crying, wasn't yelling, wasn't shaky. She was calm, dangerously calm. The kind of calm a person reaches when they've held in trauma for so long. Releasing it feels like stepping outside your own body. She took a deep breath, looked at her mother with heartbreak and exhaustion behind her eyes, and said, "Mom, I didn't tell you everything." Kandi stopped breathing. Riley continued that moment everyone's talking about. The phone call producers recorded. That wasn't the first time he said something like that. Kandi's face broke. Riley blinked slowly. There was another moment. Years ago, off camera, no mics, no producers. Just me and Todd. Kandi whispered, "What happened?" Riley hesitated, not because she didn't want to say it, but because saying it out loud meant she could never go back to pretending it. It didn't shape her life. She said, "I was about 14. You were traveling. Blaze and Ace weren't born yet. It was just me and Todd in the house for a few hours." Kandi sat up straight, every muscle in her body tensed. Riley continued, "I burned something in the microwave. It wasn't a big fire, just smoke. I panicked. I tried calling you, but you didn't answer." She swallowed. Todd came downstairs and he wasn't angry. He was disappointed, like deeply disappointed. But not at the smoke. At me. Kandi whispered. "What did he say?" Riley looked down, then straight into her mother's eyes. He said, "I already knew raising you was going to be a challenge. I just hoped I was wrong." Kandi gasped, loud, sharp, painful. But Riley wasn't done. He told me, "You're not built like your mom. You're soft. And that scares me." Kandi covered her mouth, sobbing silently. Riley blinked, holding her own tears back. That's when I stopped trying to bond with him. That's when I started staying in my room more. That's when I started feeling like I wasn't enough for him. Kandi whispered, "Baby, why didn't you tell me?" Riley's voice cracked for the first time. "Because you loved him. And I didn't want you to think I was trying to ruin your marriage." Kandi broke, full body shaking, face in her hands, crying like she hadn't cried in years. But the twist wasn't the words Todd said. It was what never aired. What producers hid, what Bravo cut out, what they buried because it didn't fit the positive blended family. Storyline. As Riley explained, producers did record part of that day, not the kitchen moment, but the seconds right after. They walked in for a check-in and caught me crying. They asked Todd what happened. Kandi looked up, eyes wide. Riley continued, and he told them, "She's sensitive. She'll get over it." Kandi's heart shattered. They asked me if I was okay. I lied. I said yes. And you know why? Kandi shook her head, sobbing. "Because I didn't want them to use it against you. I didn't want another storyline where people judged your home. I didn't want to ruin anything for you." That's when the nanny said Kandi dropped to her knees in front of her daughter. Not figuratively, literally, on her knees, holding Riley's hands, crying into them. Holding Riley's hands, crying into them. She begged, "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you go through this alone? I would have fixed it. I would have fought for you. I would have chosen you." And here came the line that destroyed the internet when it leaked later. Riley whispered, "I didn't want you to choose, because I already knew who you were going to pick." Kandi's entire body caved, and Todd was standing in the doorway, pale, motionless, overhearing every word. He tried to step forward, but Riley held up her hand. Without looking at him, "I'm not done." He froze. She turned back to Kandi. "But that wasn't the moment that broke me." Kandi looked confused, terrified. Bracing herself, Riley continued. "There was another moment. Worse," Kandi whispered. "Baby, no. Please don't tell me." Riley nodded slowly. "It was the night you two were arguing upstairs. I heard everything. And he said something that changed the way I saw him forever." Kandi's breath stopped. Riley said, "He said, I didn't sign up for her. I signed up for you, Kandi screamed. A sound the nanny said didn't even sound human. And at that exact moment, Todd stepped forward. Shaking his head, I didn't mean Riley, cut him off sharply. You meant it. You meant every word. And that's why I stopped trying. That's why I stopped trusting you. That's why when you said you couldn't wait for me to leave, I believed you. And here comes the final cliffhanger. Riley took a deep breath, stood up, grabbed her phone, and said, I've been quiet for 10 years. I'm not being quiet anymore. Kandi gasped. Baby, what are you about to do? Riley responded, I'm telling the whole truth. On camera. Okay. And she walked toward the confessional room. The nanny saw Todd's face drain off color because he knew. When Riley sits in that chair, when she looks into that lens, when Bravo hears the full story, Todd's entire reputation, career, marriage, and public image will never survive it. And the next episode is the one that will change everything. And now we are standing at the edge of the moment the entire Bravo fan base has been waiting for. The moment that will flip this storyline upside down. The moment that Todd Tucker prayed would never come to light. Because Riley isn't hiding anymore. She isn't protecting feelings. She isn't swallowing pain. She isn't staying quiet to keep peace. In a house that never protected hers. She is walking straight into that confessional room with years of truth. Years of trauma, years of emotional silence ready to spill everything on camera. And when she sits in that chair, when she looks dead into the lens, when she finally tells the full story, the world is going to see a version of that household not even Bravo dared to air. So now you, yes, you watching are part of the moment that decides how far this goes. Drop your theory right now. What do you think Riley is about to reveal on camera? What's the one moment she never told anyone, not even Kandi, until now? And do you think Todd Tucker's reputation survives this? Or is it over? Tell me in the comments, did Todd cross a line he can't come back from? Did Kandi ignore red flags for too long? Is Riley finally freeing herself or blowing the whole family apart? Who should hold accountability here, Todd, Kandi, producers, or ALL of them? Hit like if you've been glued to every twist and every painful confession. Hit subscribe if you're ready for the next chapter, because the moment Riley sits down and the cameras start rolling, this story doesn't calm down. It erupts. Turn on all notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Because the truth she drops in that confessional is going to shake Bravo, shake Atlanta, shake social media, and shake Todd Tucker's life to its core. Before you scroll, answer the question everyone is fighting about when the cameras roll. Does Riley save herself or expose something Todd has been hiding for years? Comment below. This is just beginning. Just beginning.